How's it going, everyone? Hope you're all keeping well, and welcome to episode 17 of Off the Grid, a series where we take a look at tracks that F1 has raced at in the past and tracks that have never been on the F1 schedule, and then see what they would look like if Formula 1 was to visit in modern machinery. If you missed the previous episode at Phillip Island to mark the start of the new F1 season, make sure you check that one out once we're finished here. Coming up this weekend is round 3 and a change to the schedule with the Japanese Grand Prix at Suzuka being moved to earlier in the year to avoid the typhoon season and hopefully not have such extreme weather. But today we're going to look at the track that F1 first visited in the land of the rising sun. Laying in the shadow of the famous Mount Fuji, just 18 kilometers east of its summit and 80 kilometers to the west of the most populated urban area in the world, Tokyo, the Fuji Speedway first opened in 1965. The Grand Prix circuit opened just 20 years ago in 2005 with the highest FIA certification of Grade 1, making it suitable to host Formula 1. The Grand Prix circuit with its 16 turns, 10 right and 6 left, including the famous 100-hour of turn 4 and 5. A high-speed first 2 thirds with a more technical final third consisting of tricky slow-speed off-camber corners. At 4.5 kilometers or 2.8 miles around the beautiful Japanese countryside, Fuji will be the 18th longest circuit on the schedule and much shorter than Suzuka with 1.3 kilometers in the difference. This will give it a 67 lap race distance, just 6 more than Suzuka and the 18th highest lap count. There is the possibility of 3 DRS zones, the most we've seen for a while on Off the Grid. The first, along what is one of the longest straights in motorsport, the 1.475 km stretch from the final turn along the pit straight to turn 1. Although in reality the DRS zone would likely start around halfway down the straight, similar to the back straight in Shanghai, for this video we're going to use DRS along the entire straight. After braking heavily from high speed into turn 1, the second DRS zone would be on the exit, through the kink of turn 2, down into turn 3, Coca-Cola. The final zone could be an option, this being from the exit of turn 7, through the right hand kinks of turn 8 and 9, and ending under braking for turn 10 of Dunlop. This should be possible as turn 8 and 9 should be easily flat for modern Formula 1 cars. There's a lot of tricky but important areas around here, but first up is turn 1. After being flat out for almost 1.5 kilometers, you have plenty of time to think about your braking point, which sometimes makes it harder to hit. From top speed into a tight hairpin that's downhill throughout, making the car want to understeer. Obviously an important area for overtaking, but also for getting a good exit for the following DRS zone to try and complete an overtake or get your revenge. Turn 10, 11 and 12, the slowest technical section of the track, and somewhere that would likely see a lot of action. Coming off the final DRS zone, being on the outside turn 10 doesn't mean the fight is done due to the nature of the layout. It's much tighter than turn 1 as the track comes back on itself before flicking left and then opening up the throttle through turn 12. There is a track layout that bypasses the chicane element, which could suit Formula 1 better, but I feel this layout will be more entertaining and pose a tougher challenge for the drivers. Finally, probably fairly obviously, it's turn 16, the final one of the circuit. Heading uphill with Mount Fuji off in the background, but you're not looking at that as you seek to hit the apex to get the best exit onto the long straight. A wide entry is the ideal line, with the track falling away from the apex with the camber as it tightens on the exit, which leaves the narrow inside line open to anybody feeling opportunistic for a move up the inside. Fuji was the destination for Formula 1's first visit to Japan, opening the Grand Prix in 1976 and 1977. The race was then moved to Suzuka before returning 30 years later in 2007 and 2008. No driver has won twice around here, with Mario Andretti winning in 1976, James Hunt in 77, Lewis Hamilton in 2007, and Fernando Alonso in 2008. MotoGP also raced in Fuji for 2 years in 1966 and 1967, and these days the circuit hosts the World Endurance Championship with the 6 Hours of Fuji and Super Formula as its high profile events. When F1 returned in 2007, had been redesigned under Toyota ownership, and it was announced in 2009 that the Japanese Grand Prix would alternate between here and Suzuka. However, due to the global economic collapse, in 2010 Fuji would not host the race. Toyota saying that doing so, quote, could threaten the survival of the company. The 2010 Grand Prix was held in Suzuka, which was then given exclusive hosting duties of the Japanese Grand Prix. As we've just seen, the first Japanese Grand Prix was at Fuji, and it had the honour of being the 1976 season's final race and the conclusion of the championship battle between James Hunt and Niki Lauda. Japan started as it meant to go on in F1, with extreme weather playing a pivotal role. With heavy rain conditions and having almost lost his life in similar conditions just 2 months earlier at the Nürburgring Nordschleife, Lauda withdrew from the race on lap 2 due to it being too dangerous. Hunt would go on to finish on the podium in 3rd place and claim his one and only world title by a single point over his Austrian rival. The following year, Gilles Villeneuve and Ronnie Peterson were involved in a crash which led to the death of a marshal and a photographer. Both casualties had been standing in a prohibited area of the track and were struck by debris from the collision. The marshal was believed to be attempting to move spectators away from the area at the time of the incident. This led to the Japanese Grand Prix being omitted from the calendar for 10 years until its return in Suzuka. It's not only motor racing that takes place in Fuji. The 2020 Summer Olympics, postponed until 2021, were held in Tokyo, and Fuji was used as a venue as the finishing point for road cycling events thanks to the suitable. So, heading down the long straight here at Fuji Speedway, getting ready to start the lap. A lot of time to think about the braking zone for turn 1, brake around the 100-metre board for this first turn. Very tight, downhill, but luckily a bit of camber to help you get the car in as you're then flat out through the kink of turn 2 and into the blind apex of turn 3. Carrying more speed than you would think as it opens up on the exit. That's now flat out through turn 5, turn 4 and 5 of 100R. Easy flat, but you still want to get to the right hand side to open up the turn 6 hairpin. Again through the kink of turn 7, now turn 8 and then turn 9 before getting on the brakes again downhill around 100 metres for the tricky technical part of the track. The first hairpin of turn 10, then uphill to the left through 11 before flicking right again through turn 12, and now starts the medium speed off camber corners that are very difficult to get right. You want to carry more speed than the car will allow you as it just continues to understeer wide through these few turns. And then into the final corner, possibly the most important on the track. Again, off camber, uphill, want to get on the power as early as you can onto this main straight, opening DRS, crossing the line to complete a lap around this Fuji Speedway in Japan. So now, having done a couple of laps around Fuji for the first time in many years, since back when I used to play GT Sport on the PlayStation, it is even more fun than I remember it being and than I was expecting it to be. Just the flow around the track, the different types of corners, and the challenge it poses. Just very enjoyable to do laps around and try and nail every section of the track, which is almost impossible to do, but when you get close to it, it is very satisfying to do so. In terms of racing, I think that it could be pretty good for Formula 1. I don't think it would be amazing, but now recording the end of this video after the Japanese Grand Prix last weekend, I can't see it being any worse in terms of entertaining than Suzuka was for that race anyway. So in my opinion, I don't really see any reason why Fuji couldn't make a return to the Formula 1 calendar, and given that it already has grade 1 certification, it could happen pretty easily, I think. So I don't think it's going to. I think we'll still see Suzuka on the calendar for the coming years, which it is an iconic track, so it's not a terrible thing to see. Just wish that the racing was a bit better there. And yeah, as I said, don't think Fuji would really up the entertainment value very much, but if it was to happen, at least it would be something to look forward to see a returning classic. But that is it for this video and this episode of Off the Grid. I hope you did enjoy. If you did, make sure to leave a like and subscribe before you go. But until the next one, thanks for watching and see you then.